My name is Jim Estes, and today I'm going to talk about a drill that I think is extremely important for the swing plane. So what I want you to do is, and this by the way is going to give you an instant understanding of exactly the feeling you want to have in the golf swing. Take a club, you can put a rod, alignment rod in the grip, or I'm sorry, in the butt end of the golf club. Take the golf club, turn it like you're going to hold it, and then what I want you to do is take that club, put it right against your left hip, so you're holding both clubs here. Now you've got an alignment rod on the ground and a golf ball, and what I want you to do, getting into your good posture position, your weight over the arches, feel balanced. The insides of the heels are going to be about the width of your hips. Take a swing back, slow motion, and trace with that alignment rod the target line all the way up. The shaft should be parallel to your target line at the top, and then slowly coming down, trace the line. And do this in slow motion. Right into the impact position. So this is a great feedback tool, visual feedback tool for learning the proper swing plane. Go right to your impact position. I encourage you to do this drill in slow motion, and if you have 5 minutes a day, if you do this drill every day, I guarantee you're going to improve your golf swing. So again, I think you'll find this to be extremely helpful. JimEstesGolf.com if you have any questions. So Eric has got no videos thanks to my typing issues. Alright, so you can see her grip. This crease formed between the thumb and forefinger is pointing pretty much at her, between her chin and right shoulder. I'd call that the proper grip. Now, what we were talking about is lateral stability. Lateral meaning side to side. Stability. There is when Eric was swinging his golf club the last few days, we haven't seen. We're going to go into this position here. Impact. That's awesome. Alright, but what's a little bit off here is his left leg should be completely locked out. And when she goes back, she's going to turn. And before she reaches the top of the backswing, and before her arms stop moving, her lower body, you can see, is already initiating laterally. So we have what's called coactivation. You have two forces moving in opposite directions. You have the pelvis moving toward the target and the arms are still going back. That coactivation creates a stretch between the upper and lower body. And that stretch results in power. Now, as she starts her downward movement, this is in slow motion, pretty slow, like 1,000 frames per second, you're going to see there is the lateral movement. Her lower body's going to shift. Now, when she gets to about right here, you can see why she hits the ball a long way. She's got a lot of stored energy between the left arm and the shaft. So how do you get that stored energy? Well, you have to sequence the club. The transition phase of the swing, when you start down, you can't start down with your hands. You have to start down from the ground up. So when we first started with Eric, his right elbow is getting way behind him. Now he's got incredible rotational ability. The trunk is just, you're like a corkscrew. You're like Gumby. You can really turn. That's good. We worked on your grip, your left hand grip and your right hand grip. You can see your right hand is too strong, meaning you have your right hand underneath the club too much, and the club face at the top of your swing is shut. What does that mean? That means at the top of your swing, the club face is pointing skyward, parallel to the ground, which is wrong. It should be at about a 45-degree angle. Now, I should have had a little more of an evaluation, physical evaluation, because I didn't know you had a major injury in your left ankle, but you're pretty stable there. Now, on the downswing, you're starting with your hands and your hips a little bit more at the same time. You can see your hands are moving. Her swing, she's getting the lower body to activate a little earlier right there. Her arms are still going back now. Notice the club and her right elbow. And this is what I was working on with you, is to try to keep that right elbow from getting too far behind your right hip on the backswing. And that's causing some timing problems. Timing meaning getting the club face square. You can see you've got such incredible flexibility. You can get your hands even behind your head. Nobody does that. I can't do that. But that could be a timing problem, potentially. So we want to keep the hands in front. Now, as she comes through, watch her left leg post up. Right there, she's locking that leg. What that does is it slows the hips down, and it gets the torso accelerating. Now, at impact, you can see your impact position is very good. Why? Because the back of the left hand, the shaft, they're all in a straight line here. You can see her upper arm is glued or pinned right against her chest, and you can see the amount of force she's pushing off from the ground and rotating, and then the face is square, back of the left hand is flat, and even through the ball you can see how little the club face actually rotates. If we go frame by frame, there's just very little rotation of the club face. It's rotating some. And what else is interesting is she's hitting the ball first, right there, and then the turf. Obviously, she's a world-class player. So, now, what are the other, things we're looking for? Postural stability. How steady does the head stay? Goes back a little bit to her right, comes forward a little bit, but overall it stays pretty still. Full extension of the arms right here, and then all the way around. She's very flexible. So all we have to do in your golf swing is fix your grip, which we did. Your ball position's good for a driver, and then coming through, you're getting a little bit, your segment, you can see where your hands, you've got a little bit less angle formed between the shaft and the lead arm. That's because you're accelerating a little bit from the top of your swing with the wrong segment, your hands and trunk. Your hands are a little too active from the top, but that's okay. That's a minor flaw. Alright, now, what we want to do is control the club face. The face of the club is 80% of direction or more. With the driver, it's almost 90%. So your head's actually staying steady on the backswing. But right here, Eric, you see what your upper body starts to do. Your upper body starts to shift forward. Well, that's not exactly what we want to do. We want to shift the lower body. So the lower body's got to go and the upper body's got to stay back. Now, how do you practice that? Motion training. If you put your forehead against a door and you turn your left shoulder under your chin, practice bumping your hips. And I'll show you a little exercise. This is pivot drill. So I'm going to turn back, my arms crossed, my hands are on my shoulders, turn back. Now as I shift, notice how I shift from the waist down. I don't shift my upper body. And that's something to practice, trying to get the lower body to go forward just a little bit and keep the upper body back. So that's one of the things. Again, you practice these things in segments. In other words, you would just practice one part of the downswing. Instead of moving the head forward, you're working on moving the lower, shifting that lower half forward. Right here, you get a little in front of the ball, but you recover nicely. Your head's moving backwards. Made a nice impact position there. Yeah, so that's pretty good. Alright. From the back view, let's look at where her club is. Now, as I was working with you earlier on backswing, if we draw the shaft line, And it's, you know, if you go on YouTube and you look at videos, some instructors will have lines in different places. But basically, the reason I draw a box on the hips is I'm monitoring how much your hips are moving forward. Forward meaning toward the ball. I don't want to see too much shift toward the ball with the lower body. Now, you can see the takeaway is what we're trying to do with you. That's the part I want to get. You see how her hands, the shaft, and the club head are all on that plane. But notice the club, and notice the upper arms, how they're sort of against the chest, maintaining that connection. There's not a lot of bending in the right arm initially on the takeaway. Alright, so that's something you can practice. And you don't have to spend a lot of time hitting golf balls, but in your takeaway you'll see you get a little bit inside. Well, that was much better, by the way. Now your club shaft's pointing to the right. That right elbow's way behind you. Tremendous flexibility. Now, when we do your golf swing, we want to focus on getting the club shaft to point more parallel to your stance line. Now you'll see her takeaway. You can see the club face. That's a shut club face. And that's because your grip. You can see the back of your left wrist is what we call arched. Now you'll see a couple differences in her backswing relating to where the club is. Now you see her left wrist is more flat. Now the other thing you're going to see is the lead forearm and the angle of the face are almost congruent. They're almost parallel. And that's because she has a good grip. The other thing is the elbow. Your elbow gets behind your right hip rather significantly, and her elbow doesn't get it behind her right hip that much. It gets behind it a little bit. Now, when you come down, your club face, you reroute the club pretty nicely here. That club is right on plane. We call it on plane because the club head's on that shaft line. Alright. When she starts her downswing, she's got the hips to go first. You can see that the legs are pushing off. The club drops. Not unlike your position. So you got a lot of good positions in your swing. And then when we come to impact, you can see how much she's using her lower body. You can see all these muscles are contracting. I mean, she's really using her lower half. And you are too. You got a lot of hip turn here, and that's good. That's an athletic swing. So you have fast hips because you've got about 45 to 50 degrees of rotation from the address position at impact, which is good. That means you're moving your hips with good speed. So there's a lot of good stuff here. It's a pretty athletic action, really is. Let's look at the face at impact. That's a pretty darn good impact position. Alright. Well, you might receive your first video. So we're going to work on the grip. We're going to work on getting that club more pointed down the target line. And by the way, it doesn't really make any difference who we put up here, although I will put somebody up here who's built like you, similar build. And what you're going to see when I get rid of all these lines is basically the same positions. Now what you want to look at is, you know, what's going on the takeaway is not dissimilar. Now I got to redraw these lines because they're not good. So here's the shaft. Now the reason I draw that other one is I don't want the club shaft or the club head to get above that plane on the downswing. You can see how he keeps that club right in the zone there. And you're pretty close. Here's a little bit inside. So the more the club head gets behind your hands, the more it's going to point to the right, the shaft. And again, when you look at this guy, the top of his swing, you're going to see where we're trying to go with your swing. Again, you see the similarities as it relates to the club face relative to the lead forearm. Relatively similar. You can see the right elbow relatively close to the right hip, albeit not too far behind his right hip. You can see how his right knee is staying flexed and braced. There is some movement in the right knee. Coming down here, you can see how he keeps the club right on the plane. And again, you can see that lower body is very active in front of the upper body. You see the upper body is still rotated, but the lower body's in front of the upper body. And he hits the ball a long ways, this guy, Charlie Hoffman. There's impact, obviously. So you're very close to getting where we want you to be. We just got a few little tweaks here. All right, that's